Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take calm as your reality is adjusted.
Is it working? Dang it. Oh dear. Yes, getting the one in the chat room. Cool. Hello. Sorry about that, folks. Caster, the service that we usually use for these broadcasts, is under renovations at the moment. So we've reverted back. The techno wizards have managed to set it up so we can revert back to a shakecast system, but unfortunately that means it causes my Winamp to stutter terribly, so it might be a little bit stop and start. Hopefully we can bear with it and get through that. It's working, that's the main thing. It's working great at the moment, so it will probably be whenever I start or stop playing audio, or when it switches from one song to the next track or whatever, it tends to cause a severe stutter. Strange as well, considering I've cleaned out the registry not that long ago, so I don't know, all this digital detritus. Yes, anyway, hello, ladies and gentlememes. Tonight's show will be performed by the Flying Spaghetti Monster as he brings you his delectable sauce. Yes, welcome to the sauce. I was very tempted to use that title at the moment, just simply because things keep popping up. I've had no intention of ranting and rambling again about the same old subject, but it's funny how these commonalities still keep going around, and yet people seem to be tiptoeing through the daisies, blissfully unaware, in that almost cognitive dissonant sense. But yes, something I'll rant and ramble about a bit more. I will apologise as well and say I haven't got loads of links to present to you this week. I'm probably going to ramble a fair bit, so if you're not feeling like listening to rambling, then off with you. Go and do something less boring instead. But if you're happy to be here for a bit, the show probably won't be as long as usual. Maybe we'll see how we go. I've got plenty of music, so I can play more tracks at you and stuff. And it won't be just music, I'll play some other audio clips and stuff as well. But yes, I've been very distracted this week, studying for a newfangled qualification in the use of computers, how to operate computers, how to click mices and push buttons, all for the betterment of my employability possibilities. So there you go. I've got another test I've got to do tomorrow, and soon I'll be given a license of certificated authority. Yes, a nice piece of paper with some magical ink and symbols inscribed upon it, which means I can present it to anybody and say, look, I am authentically licensed, certificated. I know what a meese is and I know how to click it. Yes, there you go. But I have been, as I usually do, couldn't resist the OCD hooks to attempt at least to keep up with the news and info that's running around out there in the webosphere, in the interwebs, in this crazy conspiracy Cluedo Where's Waldo world of tinfoil hat wearing weirdos. Yeah. yeah, there's lots and lots of stuff I could say like that. Yes, I'm just repeating myself, talking about laughing and having some humour and some joy, and yes, there is a lot of serious stuff going on, and yes, we could be all serious and monotone and dire and doom and gloom, but we will not fall for that trickery. I'm going to play you shall I leave it to play all the way through? Because if I do, that's like, would you really want to listen to approximately 15 minutes of music? Or do you think that's too much? Take a quick straw poll in the chat room. Is 15 minutes too much? Let me just check how much there is on that. Calculate, quick calculation. 12 minutes, hey, that's not too bad. That's less than I play sometimes. So, yeah, okay then. I'm going to shut up and play. A bit of a mix-up. Yeah. Save your offence for at the end. If you're easily offended, you'll have to be really easily offended. Anyway, yes, I'll be back in a few minutes. Don't panic, just click the button and then wait 10 seconds. Hello folks, hopefully you can hear me again. Yes, it's me, the Hairy Cookie Monster. Yes, you are listening to Virtual Shamanizing with me, as per usual. Well, almost every Thursday. Yes, apologies for the delays and gaps. It is a Winamp stutteration for some inexplicable to me reason, but there you go. It is giving us some functionality for now, so we'll keep going with this. Yes, hello, and I was joking earlier when I was talking about calling it The Source. Tonight's episode will be performed by the Flying Spaghetti Monster, who will present you with his sauce. Yes, anyway. It is the 2nd of the 5th, 2013. I'll get my teeth in the 5th. Yeah, that's the 2nd of May. It was supposedly polling day today, and I'll tell you about a little strange synchronicity that has nothing to do with all the other synchronicities that I've been whining about. But it just go, just take this for what you want to take it for. Yeah, anyway, as I was travelling on the bus today, because it's polling day today here in the UK, well, for most of the UK there are local elections going on, which I took no part in whatsoever. Travelling along on the bus, and I'm staring up at the clouds, watching the few chemtrails starting to spread it was a fantastically clear day this morning, and then they started putting one or two here and there, and as they spread and formed that white smear, you know what I mean. If you bothered to look up, you've seen that. So I'm sort of looking at where they're putting them and how they're growing, etc. And into my vision drifts this Mickey Mouse balloon. You know, one of those helium metallic foil balloons. It was high up in the air, probably about 200 feet up. Obviously some distressed child had let go of it and lost it, and it was floating away. And I looked at it and I thought, that's odd, you don't usually see Mickey Mouse balloons around here. And then I looked down just as the bus was rounding the corner, and straight in my vision was the polling station. And I just thought, yes, that's highly appropriate. That's a nice synchronicity there for me, thank you very much. And I have no doubt that the machine minds out there will say, oh, you're just suffering pareidolia, you're seeing patterns where there's nothing of consequence. Well, strangely enough, you see, that's the thing about synchronicities. As people reach in and connect closer and closer, further and further into that source, they see more and more synchronicities. Why is that? Is it because everything is connected? So when that mass connectedness becomes more apparent to you, you can see how, seemingly, to a machine mind person, things that are totally unconnected are actually connected in some manner. Lo and behold, I have a perception of the current government we have, most governments really, but this one certainly, is just like a Mickey Mouse show. It's Hollywood, it's Disneyland, it's a theatre for children, and lo and behold, there is where you go to put your little X on the bit of paper that makes you feel like you have some control over what's going to happen in your country. I often rant about getting involved with stuff in your local area. I do adhere to that classic argument that, you know, if you don't get involved in politics, then you will be ruled by your inferiors. And Chunky Mark has been ranting very nicely recently that it seems to be the worst of us, the worst of our civilization is in control of it. The lunatics have taken over the asylum. I will try not to breathe too hard at you this time. I noticed listening back to the last couple of weeks' show, I think it's because I've got this better quality microphone now, so you can hear me going. Yes, I apologise for that. It probably sounds terrible. But that's what you get. This is definitely lo-fi, from as close to the source as I can get it. I ain't going to put no fancy technicalities on it, just as long as the functionality gives us some function, we get on with it. Yeah, so there's an example of the kind of synchronicities that appear for me, and why I will often refer to these kind of things and talk about them and point them out. Just so that there's an example of something that's completely unrelated to the kind of synchronicities I've been ranting about recently, but to me it's still an apparent synchronistic event that had some kind of value within it for me. Yes, maybe tunnel reality value, but the very fact that I can recognise that and question it. No, go away with your straw men. Yes, anyway, what did I play? I'll explain the little remix thing in a minute. Green Day, American Idiot, Rammstein, America, and Rage Against the Machine, Bullet in the Head. I had that one lined up from last week, which I was, because we couldn't exactly get a show going last week because Castor was again doing work on their servers. But I had that lined up in particular because of the lyrical references to the propaganda machine in the corner of the living room that will get you with a bullet to the head. So that's what he's talking about, the urban drive-by. It's that bullet to the head propaganda through the goggle box. It seemed highly appropriate to me with everything that's going on over the aftermath of the Boston bombings, the marathon bombings, and the furore that's been created by the media circus around it. And I'm talking about that from both sides of the fence, from the mainstream media, fairly obvious, I feel, circus, and even the alternative media circus that has gone along with it. And that little remix I did at the beginning, I only had about an hour spare this evening to have a quick mash up on that audio track. But when I watched that guy's interview, I'll put the link in chat room, but I think the usual suspects in the chat room are probably very aware of this already and have watched it. If you haven't seen this, go and check it out. If you have what would it take you, half an hour, 40 minutes to spare to watch the videos attached to this article, you find it on infowars.com. Excuse me, I'll wait for it to open up. Yes, it is on infowars.com. Just take that fiat out and put it to one side and just carry on looking at the information. Title of the article is MSNBC Guest Who Attacked InfoWars Exposed. This is I think there's 3 videos on there to watch in total. The article itself really is just a carrier for the videos themselves. You need to watch the videos themselves to get the picture, really. One of the InfoWars reporters has been in Boston trying to confront the various officials about the story and asking them very direct questions about, is this a false flag? Why was there a drill going on? And, please allow for the caveat of, yes, a lot of this stuff they're talking about is still under question. It's still under investigation. These things have not been proved one way or the other. Well, some of them haven't been, etc. So, don't jump your guns and go, oh, that's false, oh, that's been disproved. Oh. I'm talking about the situation involving the media effect of this circus, as is very well demonstrated by that little body of experiential evidence. You can watch the video of this guy attacking the InfoWars reporter, Bidondi, I think, is it his name, Dave Bidondi, I think, and the resulting sort of after effect of that, when the guy in question was actually invited onto InfoWars to further the conversation and find out why he was so aggressive, etc. And that for me was the interesting thing. If you watch that video and you have a quick look at the comments, you can see how this guy is basically being torn to pieces. You have the obvious, the Jones fan club, the die-hard supporters, and I gotta say it, the crazed supporters who will just pile on and be just as aggressive and offensive and abusive as the person they're complaining about. But then this guy's arguments, he doesn't even have any arguments at all, and that's just what makes it even worse. And this is why I wanted to talk about this. It's not so much because I'm trying to push InfoWars in any way at all, I'm certainly not. This is just because of the content of the interaction with this other person. As he talks about, as has been talked about a lot by various people, not just involving this event, but other previous recent events, it can create a lot of animosity and a lot of ill feeling and discomfort and unpleasantness, because you are questioning things that for a lot of people are highly sensitive. And a lot of the people in this, what you would call conspiracy genre, truth movement, etc., etc., all the usual labels and boxes, some of them can be very crazy, some of them can be highly offensive. It's that problem of free speech again, isn't it? You get free speech, and it means you have to hear the craziness that comes out of some people's gobs. But that doesn't detract from the fact that there are highly questionable parts to the official story. The event itself is questionable, etc., etc., etc. So, unfortunately, sometimes the truth can be unpleasant, but it still has to be faced, to be dealt with, and you still have to ask questions to find out the answers. If you don't, then it's like leaving a festering wound. And as I usually do, I will wind this around in various directions, because it did make me think about that whole the mentality of the victim mentality, let's put it that way. And I'm not talking in reference to the people who actually suffered injuries or loss of a relative or loved one, etc., at any of these events. I'm talking about the victim mentality of the people that are being terrorised by these events, i.e. the general public of these countries. And it's not just North America, it's not just the USA, and that's part of the reason why I played the Rammstein track, because we all now live in America. Because America does not mean that body, that mass of geological outline that is represented on maps with the label USA. I'm talking about the cancerous corporatism, nepotistic, machine dominated mentality of consumption, of greed and consumption. Yeah, I was just ranting all that good old hippie stuff. It's the machine, man. That consumptive type of semi-socialism, it verges between corporatism and socialism. It's one and the same, really. They strip the walls off that box and basically they're the same thing. It's a duck, it quacks like a duck, it waddles like a duck, it's a duck. There's another box. It's the duck-shaped box. But it is no longer just restricted to certain countries such as the USA or the UK or the Western Allies or whatever they want to label themselves as, or we label them as, the neo-colonial empire. It's a global backdrop. I didn't grab the link for it, but as exampled in that Rolling Stones article, You know, the conspiracy people always rant about the Illuminati, and everybody thinks about people in big robes with like hoods pulled up in dark basements all chanting and waving incense burners. Yes, that kind of stuff probably does go on, but that's not really what's happening, or that's not what is the only thing happening in the background, in the backdrop behind the throne. Yeah, there are all those that melee of people that includes the infamous bloodlines, and includes the secret societies, and includes all the classic names that everybody trots out whenever they talk about this grand global conspiracy. But it also includes the super wealthy, the people that have fought their way towards the top of the pyramid. They may not have quite got there, but they've certainly got big enough to have a major influence on national or global the global stage or events. So it is there, and it is chugging away, and that mindset is exampled by this guy who rants at Dave Badondi, that totally lacking any kind of reasoned argument or evidence to back up his assertions or his point of view, his argument, whatever. And for me, that was an example of the victim mentality, the victim mindset, in as a representative of an abuse victim who is at that stage of anger, of realisation that they don't want these things to be real. They can't believe that these people in power would do this kind of thing. There's a stage of that victim psychology where it is just breaching denial such that they have to say something about it. They can't completely ignore it anymore, but they wish to deny it. Their entire world will fall apart if they don't deny it. You know, the pyramid will come crumbling down if they don't deny it. They have to try and reinforce the bubble by self-justification. And if it comes down to it, that self-justification is just as emotively and belief-driven as the kind of fundamentalist that this guy was claiming he was totally against. He's totally against fundamentalists. Even though you watch the other video clip of him laughing as people were being killed by remote gunfire, from helicopter gunfire, etc. This is a good example of somebody that would normally classically be called sheeple, if not worse than that, really, because he exudes the arrogance and greed and narcissism of a psychopath. He does not care about what happens to other people as long as they're not in his way or spoiling his nice day out. As long as it's not in his back garden. If it is, he will get an axe and chop them up. I'm making assertions, yes, I know. So, seeing this as an example of that mindset, and this, for me, carried on from thinking about or going through in my mind a lot of what's been talked about recently over the marathon bombings events, the evidence, etc., plus the general conversation of people backs and forwards. And I thought it works well as a good example of, in that denial effect, that angry denial effect of the self-justifying wall building. They're attempting to reinforce their denial bubble as your evidence, your argument, as the reality of what is going on around them starts to make cracks in that bubble wall. They start reinforcing it by self-justification. Sometimes that self-justification becomes absurd. He has no argument, he just shouts abuse. He has no evidence, he just talks about it, he randomly changes the subject, classic evasion. And in relation to that, it was making me think along the lines of, as I mentioned last week, the actors meme. I definitely feel, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, we talked about it for the last couple of years. This thing started happening maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, and it's gradually picked up weight as a meme, and it's now become so part and parcel of the conversation that when you're attempting to reference anything to do with geopolitical shenanigans, possible conspiracies, possible black ops and all this kind of stuff, you're attempting to point out the nefarious deeds that are going on around people that they should be aware of so that they can attempt to avoid them and maybe address them in some manner. It detracts from all of that because it adds an air of unreality to it. I feel that it's undeniable that there would have been actors or agents, whether they were a sort of subcontracted employed actor or whether they were agents who were just for that particular time acting a certain role within that event. It's common parlance to use the terminology actor in that kind of reference. The governmental bodies that deal with this kind of information refer to them as actors because of that reason, because they're describing a play. When they write this stuff out, they write it out as if they are describing a play. Unless somebody's named particularly, etc., they refer to them as actor. It's just been that way ever since I've been looking at information like that. It's been that way anyway. I feel it's undeniable that some would have been used sometimes in some places for some occasions, but that doesn't mean it happens every time, and it doesn't mean everybody involved is an actor and the entire event is staged. The only caveat or exception I put on that for myself at the moment, the way I'm looking at all this stuff, is that the one that sort of stands out as being the exception to the rule is Sandy Hook, because there are just so many gaps in that particular story. It really does all start to become very, very Hollywood, and things such as Creepy Gene, etc., just make that whole pot of stew just become murkier and murkier and murkier. And it did. And again, why I'm referencing all this stuff now and while I'm bringing it in as reference, that made me think about the possibility that was Sandy Hook deliberately the one exception to create the justification. The primary person who started this actors meme a couple of years ago has got to the point where he's quite embedded, entrenched and well established on the interwebs. We can see by looking at the various evidence that's being put out there by people and the various conversations that's going on, I think it's pretty obvious that it's there, established enough now. As I say, it's got enough weight that it always appears in every conversation. For me, it's getting to the point of being similar to every conversation that will have UFOs in it, or every conversation somebody will invariably mention Hitler. It's one of the laws of the internet, and it now seems to be, certainly in the case of when we're trying to talk about events or topics such as this, where potentially there has been some kind of governmental or agency involvement. This meme appears instantly and starts weighing in on the conversation and attempting to steer the conversation towards itself. So was Sandy Hook deliberately done completely as a false flag? Most definitely, genuinely, with all actors, and well, maybe not all, but majority actors, and the whole thing staged and blah blah blah. Did they do that deliberately to then add a multiplying factor, a strength multiplier, to the already now established weight of the meme that was created initially back a couple of years ago when this whole actors thing started coming out, and various channels and well-known people in this kind of conspiracy truth movement thing that is going on the interwebs were accused of being actors, that played parts in Hollywood and stuff like that. With that exception to the rule, with that exemplar. They have now set the trap. They baited the trap, basically. The trap is the actor's meme, and Sandy Hook was the bait to lure people in, and it means now the pejorative, the dismissive corral effect of whenever an event occurs and somebody comes in, whether through ignorance or deliberate agenda, comes into the conversation and says, "It's actors," instantly the turd is in the punch bowl, and people will be siphoned off and steam valved away and pseudo gang corralled away from any genuine investigation into the topic, because they become quagmired down into that corral of arguing backs and forwards, like this guy was on the example I'm using, the InfoWars interview, of just purely emotive, belief driven, emotional just abuse. He was ending up with just totally ad hominem attacks, no argument, no reasoning whatsoever. I think for them, yes, I'm using that generality of them, the ubiquitous label of them. For them, I think that would work quite well. I try, although I find it, it's not a nice thing to do, but I try to look at certain things in an objective manner and think along the lines of, if I was going to carry out this thing, why would I do it and how would I do it? The classic question of cui bono or qui bono, who benefits? If you can follow that paper trail of who is the most likely beneficiary to the greatest degree, not he gets a little bit for it. Now, who gets the most benefit for this? They're more likely going to be the culprits, and by that most benefit, it gives you some inkling towards how they would have carried it out. Which is why, it wasn't last week, was it? Obviously, because there was no show last week, but previous to that, the previous show I did, where I asked a simple question of, from an operational point of view, if you were somebody in one of these agencies and you wanted to carry out this kind of propaganda, false flag, media storm, circus type thing, why would you risk using actors? You wouldn't when you have a stable full, you have a black book full of patsies that you could tell to go and stand there at the end of the race, carry a backpack, wear this particular cap, or wear a particular, like a baseball style cap, hang around there at the end of the race, and I'll phone you when we need you, when we're ready to tell you what to do next. And you just don't tell him that there's a bomb already planted there, because he's a patsy. He doesn't need to know. He'll die in the blast. Where's the actors involved in that? There's no need for any actors whatsoever, and the thing will work. If you put an actor in there, you then take the risk of that person being compromised, of changing their mind, of being suspicious. Loads and loads and loads of extra variable risks that you just don't need to worry about, when you can just do it with a simple throwaway patsy. And with these two guys that they had doing it, it was a bug off. Because by the looks, but for me, I'm talking from my perspective and what I've been looking at, the evidence I've been looking at, it's more than likely that the younger guy was influenced or carried along by his older brother. Whether there is any genuine facts, I'm still watching the evidence coming out of the older brother being handled by the FBI. I think it's more than likely by the looks of it. And as I say, it's probably just unfortunately that the younger brother got roped into this one particular event, probably on the promise of some money or something like that. So there you go, bug off. Buy one patsy, get one free. And again, to reiterate, sometimes things do need to be repeated, but the people who are people who have their hands on the levers, on the strings, on the buttons, on the stamps of authority that they put on the bits of magic paper that they hand to people, they don't care about blowing you up. They don't care about starving you to death. They don't care about poisoning your atmosphere, poisoning your water. They don't care, because they've got so much wealth. They can get access to stuff that's not poison. They can hire guards to protect them. They can build really, really big walls around their houses, so big that you will never get in and they will never have to look at your ugly, starving face. They don't care. And with that in mind as your starting point, when you were planning these kind of things, why would you bother risking having an actor involved? For me, it just doesn't make any logical sense. As I say, yes, I agree that there would have been occasions where they would have needed to or wanted to for one reason or the other, but to try and say that everything is an actor and the whole thing is Hollywood, those arguments fall apart with a few simple little bits of investigation. It doesn't take a lot of time and effort or intelligence or cleverness or knowledge or anything like that. It just takes a bit of common sense and a little bit of thinking through to look at some of this stuff and see how it just as well might not have been an actor. It could have been the way they're saying it is. There was a pressure cooker in a trash can, and it was filled with rubbish and metal parts, and it went bang, and a lot of people lost limbs and a few people died. It could be as simple as that. That takes a lot less effort to set up and carry out successfully than it would to have some elaborate hoax using actors and special effects and a script and, cameramen paid off to take the appropriate pictures, etc., etc. To add that in to what I was talking about with the abuse victim blindness, let's call it that, the blind spot that abuse victims will often have because they're just not in a psychological state to be able to actually look directly at the truth of reality of what is going on because it's too horrific for them yet. If they look at it, they will suffer some kind of nervous breakdown or complete psychological snap, so the brain just automatically redirects itself. That's why we end up with buried memories and those kind of abusive relationships where the partner will just continuously, no matter how many times they've been beaten by their abusive partner, they'll say, oh, he's okay, she's okay, he's okay. They didn't mean it really, because they can't face that next stage of dealing with the problem, which is actually looking at it head on and starting to address it. They've glanced at the doorway and they find that what they see beyond the doorway is unpleasant to them, so they won't actually turn to face it and start walking through it. And this guy in this interview, I did ponder, should I actually mash up that American Idiot track and put his voice over with it, because I thought he's being a bit underhanded. But then after watching the video clip of him laughing as people were torn apart by machine gun fire, I thought, no, in the same way that this guy claims that by shouting just absolute abuse at the InfoWars guys, that justifies him spreading truth and reality. Oh, there's no truth in reality in what he was doing, because he was an idiot. He's a really good example of a useful idiot. And if you review some of the information that's out there about how countries or state systems are usurped by their enemies slowly over time, the kind of propaganda and infiltration that is used, the useful idiot is talked about in many ways from many different agendas, from many different governments, etc. The useful idiot is the person who, because the mainstream media has the stamp of authority on it, will just not question it at all. They will not question authority at all. Authority is their entire existence. Whatever the governmental mummy and daddy says to them must be true, because governmental mummy and daddy said it to me. It's been my argument all along about the OPPT, the old paper paradigm trickery, because it is just another authority giving you a piece of paper that says you have the authority to have this piece of paper. As I was joking earlier, I'm sitting a test tomorrow which will give me a license certificate of authority. In other words, I'll get a bit of paper with a little symbol at the letterhead top of it and a stamp on it, and somebody will sign it to say, yeah, this person has proved that they know how to click a mouse. And it gets ridiculous when people base their entire existence upon the permission of such papers. You're already here existing. If you weren't already here existing, you wouldn't be listening to me now ranting this at you. So if you're already here existing, that means you're existing, and that existence comes along with arguably some inalienable rights, and one of them is the fact that you don't need somebody else to tell you you have these rights, you don't need somebody else to give you these rights and tell you you have them, because you already have them. They don't need to give you permission to have them, because you already have them. As soon as you began existing in this existence, you had them. Yes, I could go off on that rant for ages, and I said I was going to play more music, so I'm going to play some, stop going freak out on me, Winamp, you crazy things. It's just not happy with doing the Shakecast thing at the moment, but we will work with it. I'm going to play a couple of bits. I'm going to play a little audio clip from a YouTube channel which I follow called Jam Noise. You find Jackie on YouTube. Channel name is Jam Noise 72. I'll put a link in the chat room for the people in the chat room. This is just a link to the video that she did for this, but it's primarily just audio with some text on, but check it out, go and check it out if you want. But I'll just play the audio from it. If Winamp will let me click things, and a couple of other little bits that I will add in there. Sorry, talking to myself. I'll play that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and I will be back in a little bit. Hopefully Winamp won't stutter too much and spoil it. I hope you enjoy it. I will be back soon.
There is a virus going around the world. It is infecting many people, young and old, male and female. So far, there is no vaccine for this virus, or any known cure. What we do know at this early stage is once a person is infected, they do not wish to be cured. The name of this virus is the information virus. Have you got the virus? Ways to tell if you are infected. Have you stopped watching the TV? Do you think outside the box? Do you find discrepancies in news stories? Do you question and care about world issues? Are you aware of the New World Order plans? Do you know what Agenda 21 is? Do you notice the chemtrails? Have you heard of HARP? If you have answered yes to at least one of these questions, then you have started to get the information virus. If you answered yes to all the questions, then you are fully infected. How to tell if you have not been infected with the virus? Do you watch a lot of TV? When in conversation with someone, is most of your conversation about TV, games, or celebrity gossip? Is sport more important to you than what the government is doing? Do you know more about your favourite football team than you know about what laws are being passed in Parliament? You have never heard of the New World Order. If you have answered yes to one or more of these questions, then you do not have the virus. How the virus can be spread. The information virus can be spread by sharing information with others. Once a seed of information has been planted, that person has become infected. Whether they wish to hear the information or not, it cannot be deleted, ignored, or forgotten. The information virus is spreading, and it is spreading far and wide. This virus is a product of the universe. There is no cure for the information virus. Once all the inhabitants of Earth are infected, then the universe will change and heal deceptions and all problems man is currently facing. The governments around the world are aware of this current virus that is spreading. They are trying to do all they can to stop the spread of the information virus. Make it your duty today to become infected. Once you know you have the information virus, it then becomes your duty to infect others. The information virus needs to go viral.
We are clicking the buttons frantically. Yeah, hello, welcome back. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, it looks like it's broadcasted okay. I was clicking buttons furiously trying to make it stop. We are... Yes, hello, welcome back. I just quickly, what did I play? I played that audio clip from Jam Noise from Jackie. World's Healthiest Virus, have you caught it? Yeah, you can search that title on YouTube if you want to find it that way. And then classic Gil Scott Heron clip, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. Payday Monsanto, everybody knows. And audio sleeve, Cochise, not cat cheese, Cochise. Yes. Yeah, we managed to getting through flu. We are clicking the pyramids. Yes, indeed. We are furiously, frantically clicking. Yes, by tomorrow, hopefully, well, maybe next week, I should have my licensed certificate authentication for frantic clicking, frantic maze clicking. Yes, I'm getting too silly now, sorry. I'll get back to ranting about serious truthiness. Yeah, go and check out Finn Radio as well, find them at freedominfonetwork.org. Dennis playing regular music, and I think Ian's playing regular music as well, and other shows as well on there. Go and check it out if you just want some, more audio to listen to. I haven't been able to keep up with all the stuff I've got to listen to, a backlog of podcasts and everything that I want to listen to, but there you go. I've been listening to them on the bus while I'm going backwards and forwards. Anyway, yes, get back to where it was. Well, in my notes it says Chunky Pig. I think people will probably guess what that's referring to. Chunky Pig, yeah, Chunky Mark McGowan, the artist taxi driver, did his pig push last week to Parliament, and they did actually let him through the gate to go and hand in his petition, which is fantastic. Yeah, he's managed to get it that far and carry it that far. And the audience that are getting to see his stuff and sort of starting to, realise that the perspective he's trying to present for people, he puts it across in that artistic, or I was going to say, you could also say, the angry taxi driver kind of persona. But unfortunately, again, it's something that needs repeating. Some people are so asleep, we need to shout at them. And, it might not work for everybody, but it will work for some people. So the fact that he's reaching people through that medium, to me, is what matters. He's reaching people directly, and he's starting to catch their attention and getting them to start questioning and start looking into stuff for themselves. But he put one up, I think it was this afternoon, or it was this afternoon. And I posted a comment to it because he was talking about the UK Uncut actions that have been going on for May Day, for the May Day protests. There have been lots of protests going on all over the globe. Yeah, it's not just here, it's not just something that's peculiar to the UK or to the USA or whatever. It's going on all over the place. Yeah, there's so much crap being thrown through the news cycle and through the mainstream media entertainment mind-boggliness that people quickly forget recent news, let alone more historic events. You know, they're quite easily distracted from one scandal to the next, to the new bit of gossip or whatever. So people have probably forgot about the austerity and the global crisis, the economic crisis, and every other crisis that's going on. But yeah, there's been quite a lot of protests going on. I'll put a quick link in the chat room. I think this, as far as I remember, because when I got the YouTube link, it was just a video clip from RT, and as RT like to do, yes, they've got their own agenda. This is riot porn, basically. It's just a few clips of some of the clashes that have occurred at these various protests in different places. They're talking about Spain and Greece, a few other places as well, mentioned in that little video clip. But there you go, it's just an example of some of the stuff going on. And I think, you know, it wasn't exactly any major riotous occasion. By the looks of it, most people's protests went off peacefully. Hopefully, you know, they had the kind of impact they were after without having to have all that silliness, violence and destruction. But yes, there have been lots of protests going on. And Chunky Mark put up a video talking about the UK Uncut actions, and again trying to get across to people that you can get involved, you can take part, you can participate. You just have to get off your ass and start actually doing it. Yeah, and I just commented the kind of thing I've said before. I know I've said it several times on the show. Stop observing and start participating, and the revolution will not be televised. When I came back to the computer later on and seeing that I'd had some replies to that comment, and those replies were basically saying, yes it will be televised, oh yes it will. And I wanted to address that just simply because it also adds into what I've been talking about in reference to that clip earlier, and the abuse victim mentality and the psychopathic mentality of seeing it as illusion, as seeing it as unreal, seeing all this stuff as some kind of game or fantasy or Hollywood. I am presuming a little based on purely the reply that I got from different people, saying basically the same thing. Yes, it will be televised, and I will say, yeah, there will be people taking imagery and recording it in some manner. Yes, there will be, of course there will be, but they're not going to be on the telly. The television, they're not going to be on there. The mainstream media will not show you these pictures. The mainstream media will not represent or cover the revolution when it actually happens, because they won't want to show it. It's just simple common sense again about how they control the populace at large to make sure that they don't cause too much trouble. If a revolution really starts, really starts, you know, not just a localised riot or a bit of localised unrest. If you're talking about a revolution, the revolution, when it starts, they ain't going to want you knowing about it, and they ain't going to want you talking about it or sharing the information that it's actually going on, it's actually happening now, because if they do, you will more likely join in. So it's the equivalent of them handing out free invitations to, hey everyone, come and join the revolution. So no, it will not be televised. You may get information about it via the interwebs, for as long as they hold up. Take Egypt and Libya as examples of how that intercommunication network can be messed with and interrupted and defiled with propaganda and misinformation, deliberate disinfo, etc., etc. Yes, people will attempt to, and some will succeed in sharing information about an actual thing going on, the revolution going on, but they're not television, and they won't be allowed on the television. It will not be televised. The only caveat I'd give to that is if, as most successful revolutions have proved, one of the first points of call that you should make in your revolutionary action is to supersede the infrastructure of that information dissemination. In other words, you attack the TV stations, you take over the TV and radio stations so that you can keep the broadcasts open and going, but you only put out your propaganda. Yeah, that is classically how they all do it. They will take over the like I say, the infrastructure that is used for disseminating information to the mass populace. So with that caveat, if the revolutionaries succeed in a blitzkrieg action to get in quick and take over that kind of infrastructure, then yeah, maybe it will pick up to be televised by them. But televised as in the Gil Scott Heron spoken word piece, that poem, what he's referencing is that illusory Hollywood world of TV land. That's why he references so many brand names in the piece. I know they're like 2-3 decades old that he's talking about, because it's from the 60s and 70s, but that's why he's representing it from that point of view. He's trying to get across to people that the machine, what the machine shows to you, what the mainstream media world presents to you as the theatre that they call reality, they're not going to put the revolution as part of that. If they show you something and they tell you it's the revolution, pretty damn certain that it's some kind of co-opted version or deliberate distraction or corral. The real revolution is taking place on the streets, in your community, in your living room. The real revolution is going on in your head. It will not be televised because the revolution is in your head. This is something that, again, I've been doing a lot of reiterating recently. Maybe it's just because I repeat myself a lot. Quite possibly. But to reiterate, so many people still, I think, as they come to this information, as the machine cracks down further, and as I've talked about before, the iron fist tightens, the fences of the corral get tighter and tighter, more and more people get pushed to the fringes, get disenfranchised, fall through the cracks in the system, or pushed through the cracks in the system, which means the growing number of questioners, the growing number of dissenters keeps growing exponentially. The more it cracks down, the more dissenters there are. As that keeps accelerating, more and more people will be questioning, and that will lead to that revolution. Is not one that will follow the classic kind of aggressive, destructive, violent revolution that we've seen again and again and again. Because as has been shown again and again and again, those revolutions just change the set decoration. They change the face of whichever particular tyrant sits on top of the heap, whether that be an individual or a small group of people, whatever. It's the same thing. It's a small, isolated area of control that continually attempts to centralise everything to itself. It's a black hole effect. So all you'll do is take one psychopath that's quite willing to use force and replace them with another psychopath quite willing to use force. The revolution, in good old hippie sense, the revolution is the revolution of consciousness, and that revolution of consciousness will enable people to walk away from the violent thread, the violent path, the path of force, because it doesn't work. It goes nowhere. It's circular. it never gets you anywhere. It just perpetuates the paradigm, it perpetuates the problem. So the more and more people that are starting to come to those realizations, the more and more people are disengaging and re-engaging with the reality around them. And that starts in their own head, then in their own living room, then in their own local community, their own street, etc., etc. You get the point. The revolution will not be televised, because the revolution is already happening, and it's already there, it's already going on. And you are part and parcel of it, whether you choose to actively participate or not. You will get dragged along in the tide. So, I think it was Pericles, that original quote was, if you don't take part in politics, you will be ruled by your inferiors. It's either Pericles or Plato, I forget which now off the top of my head. Yes, and again, to reiterate, please don't get confused when people use the word politics. It can have different aspects to the meaning that it contains. We can say politics about the puppet show that is on TV on Question Time once a week to allow people to shout at the TV and vent their anger as they argue over which team they support, and their team is bigger than the other team. My God's bigger than your God. Or you can talk about real politics, which is the interrelationship of power and exchange between all people. You know, that's your local community. That's how you get on with your neighbours. You know, when you're making friends with your local neighbours, that's politicking in your local community. Like I said, don't fall into that limited perspective of the meaning of the word politics. Expand that perspective. The manipulation of language to form tight little boxes. It's something that is, again, part of that centralizing effect, that compartmentalizing effect, the subdividing, the ultimate individuation of every little thing in existence until, you know, it descends into that black hole, getting crushed as it goes. And this is not revisionism, this is evolution. There's a big difference, big difference in direction of flow. Revisionism is trying to drag us back into the past. Evolution is progressing forward. And even that implies, you know, dualism, forwards or backwards. But there you go. Hopefully you'll quickly leap over that stepping stone that is dualism and start to see the bigger picture. Yeah, I think I've ranted a fair bit, more than made up for what was in my quick sparse notes. I was tapping away this afternoon, well, this evening, by the time I finally got to sit and look at some stuff and start making some notes. I'm going to leave one link in the chat room for people there. Again, I think the usual suspects that are in the chat room probably already seen this. If you haven't got this, bookmark it, and at some point expend the time and effort required to sit and flick through it. I feel it's well worth your time, even though I know there are arguments that some of the bits and bobs in it could be questionable, some of the evidence might be questionable, etc. But that's part and parcel of the process, isn't it? Looking at stuff like this and learning it for yourself. For those people just listening, find what I'm referring to at www.jackherer.com/the book. It's Jack as in Jack, Herer, HERER.com. So JackHerer.com/the book. And that's an online version of Jack Herer's classic book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which gives you a potted history and perspective of the demonisation of cannabis, the manipulation of its production and trade and cultural use and social implications, and some of the many uses that it can be put to, etc. It's a good body of evidence and argument to give you a perspective on how the machine likes to co-opt and control every aspect of existence, every aspect of this biosphere, so that they can put a commodity label on it, they can put a pound sign on it, or a dollar sign, or whatever particular currency they use, to commodify it. It did make me think, while I was sat on the bus thinking about things to rant and ramble about, and I had that nice little synchronicity of the Mickey Mouse balloon over the polling station, it made me think, who owns the sky? Part and parcel of the classic fiat paper illusion of ownership is that they ring and fence the planet, they chop it up into little divided packages that they then sell to you, or they make you pay rent for, etc., etc. That's looking downwards onto the planet, and the planet does have a finite amount to it in that sense, so they can put a finite number of borders upon it, and therefore that can imply value based on the limitation of the available resources within each parcel, blah 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 blah, all good basic economic stuff. But if you look up, the sky, to all our knowledge and conjecture, is infinite. So how will they divide that up? But do you think they won't try? They most certainly will. Do those illusory boundaries that surround each country on the map, each country has its own sort of segregated airspace, do those boundaries go on for infinity into space? So does each country own an infinite chunk of space in that direction from their boundaries? Who owns the sky? I think that they think they own the sky. They believe they own the sky. That's why they're quite happily spraying all their crap up there. Yes. Anyway, I'm going to play a couple of tunes, a bit of audio, and then I will be leaving it there, because I did say I was going to be finishing early, and I've already ranted beyond what I was intended to do. Thank you for listening, folks. Again, apologies, a bit lacking on substance in terms of links and stuff. I just simply haven't had the time to collate things together, other than my generalised thoughts to rant and ramble at you. So hopefully I've given you a few seeds to chew on or play with or whatever, and if not, thank you for at least having the courtesy to sit and listen to me waffle. Well, if you're sitting, you might be lying down, you might be standing up, I don't know. Let's get into the caveat game. Okay, I will rant and ramble at you again soon, next week hopefully, or vlog on YouTube, whatever, but in some manner, I'm still here, I'm still ranting. Their little imps haven't stopped me yet, and I will continue ranting until they throw me in a dark dungeon somewhere and shut the door and throw away the key. Paranoid fantasy, tinfoil hatter, crazy conspiracy loon, woohoo! Take care, folks. Keep laughing, keep looking, keep searching, keep conversing, and keep evolving.